Hi, Clarissa. I'm very happy to have you
It's
here.
Albert from Amsterdam. How are you?
I'm doing great. Very excited about this episode and this talk with you. And how are you
All
doing?
is well. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're happy because, the weather has broken and we're having beautiful, almost fall-like weather after, a summer that was really, really very hot here in the desert. And it's coming up close to the holidays now. So it's a really great time of year.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can relate only on the holidays part because winter has came already
Yes.
here and it's pretty cold.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Awesome. So, Clarissa, you are the writer of the award-winning book, The Self-Esteem Regime. That's pretty interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
I would like to know more about that. And first, I have a very curious question. Have you ever struggled with self esteem
Oh my
yourself?
goodness. Well, you can't write about something if you don't know about something, right?
Right.
So
That's my guess.
that's how that works. Yeah, I think that that is something that we don't get off of this earth. Most human beings will have an issue with self-esteem in some way, shape, or form, somewhere along the line. Even the parents, the people with the most perfect parents in the world will suffer with something somewhere. Life is life, and life will trigger us. And we have issues at work. We have issues in relationships. We have problems, with our own self. A lot of us don't like the way we look in a mirror. I mean, again, there are many different things that we compare ourselves to others. I think we see that with social media pretty much all the time. And so, life is what it is. It's a beautiful place to be. It's a fabulous thing to live, but it comes with its challenges. And certainly having, happy, healthy self-esteem all the time is one of those challenges. So yes, of course, I've had my issues, I've had my struggles, and I'm thrilled to be able to write a book like The Self-Esteem Regime. It's an action plan, really. It's a manual. For me, it's a manual, a mission, and a movement to see that all people in the world live as esteemed beings. And with that being said, especially in these last 3 years, Albert, we're all really going through it. We're having, difficulties, and you can see things as social, political, economically. We saw things with COVID, and what happened there. There's political unrest. People are angry, they're confused, and so there's a lot of different things that I think that if people were to direct some of that energy into their own personal development, it would be so much better for them and for the collective as well.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. And it's very hopeful to know, maybe for others, that a very successful person like you even have had these problems at least. So,
Yeah.
like we all will have our chances.
Yeah, well,
But my,
we call them the daily
sorry?
sorry, we call them the daily demons, right? Those are the
Yeah.
demons that come in and they're all negative, and everything they have to say is bad, and they want to deter you, and they want to discourage you, and they want to tell you how horrible you are. There's no time for that. Here's the one thing that I do like to say, and that is tomorrow isn't promised. So, what are we waiting for? And I also say it's our sacred duty to ourselves, first and foremost, and to others, that we come to the table complete. We come to the table whole. And that means that we're doing the work on our personal development. And sometimes it's not going to be easy. Like they call personal development soft skills. These are the soft skills. Well, these are soft skills that are probably some of the hardest things you will ever have to do, and that is dealing with yourself and your demons. We also, we go back to the native tribe, right? So to the family and to the generational traumas that have been passed along. So when we talk about generational trauma. For me, and what I offer to you and your audience is the toxic stops here. It stops right here. There's my line in the sand, and it's now on me, and I'm happy to do it, to fix some of that generational trauma. And so, again, going back to our sacred duty, and that it won't always be easy to do this work, Albert. It can be pretty taxing, and You are going to have a nice dose of courage when you start taking a deeper dive into your personal development.
Yeah, that's very exciting, actually. And from your book, maybe can you guide us on, like you said, it might be a choppy, hard road, right? Can you guide us, like give us some hint on how this road looks like for the people who haven't tapped into this yet?
Yeah. What I'd like to do for a second is, if I can, find it really quick, is I love to bring to the table the introduction.
Mhm.
And it was, let me see the acknowledgments. I think I'll do the acknowledgments of my book, and let's see if you can find yourself in here. Just give me 1 second.
Sure.
So, I'd like to acknowledge the millions of people all over the world who have been abandoned, abused, beaten, hit, struck, oppressed, depressed, distressed, held back, lied to, cheated on, stolen from, lost, betrayed, deceived, misled, you've been double-crossed, walked out on, you've been stabbed in the back, sold down the river, deserted, discarded, shunned, cast out, dropped, dumped, forgotten, neglected, rejected, or dejected. You are the sole reason I have written this book. So I think if we were to read just in the acknowledgments, I think everybody will say, yeah, well, yeah, that's happened to me.
Yeah, that's me.
That's me. The first chapter that we go into right away is the release chapter. You'll see it here. And the release
Mm.
chapter is probably 75% of the work that we do, because what we have to do is to get rid of the old, the old model, the old paradigm, all of the things we were taught that we were sure they were written in stone. This has to be true because it's what I was taught from my parents, from my aunt, from the church, from the schools, it has to be true. When we find out in a deeper dive that sometimes it's not always true. For example, we always talk about, I am enough, I am enough, he is and you are enough, everybody's enough. Well, I decided one day to take a look at the definition of enough. And enough is only as much as is required. I'll say it again. Only as much as is required. So, by definition, the word enough isn't enough.
Right.
So, instead of saying, I am enough, the new mantra that I invite everyone to write down, put on the sticky note, put it on your mirror in the morning, put it in your workspace is, I am so much more than enough. I am so much more than enough. So we have to be really, really careful also of the wording that we are using on a daily basis, and to what are we offering to our subconscious that it believes is true and immutable, right? So we also know that once we leave the native home, we leave that tribe, there are going to be things that we're going to make our own because that may not have served our greater good. We still love mom and dad and we'll be home for Christmas dinner, don't worry, you know? But maybe it wasn't always what we were taught wasn't always the best thing for our greater good, right? We always want to come to the table also, Albert, a better person tomorrow than we are today. And that's where that's where our education comes in again, the personal development work, the self-improvement work. And when I was a kid, there were no computers, there was no software, there was no cell phones. We didn't have any of that, but we had bookstores. And there was a little section in the back called the self-help section. And in the self-help section, there probably were 40 to 50 books, 60 books, maybe 70 on a good day. So that's where I would live. I lived because I wanted the assistance, the guidance, the understanding, the help, the support, that because I knew that what I was taught wasn't working for me. It wasn't working. I was coming from a dysfunctional household. I was coming from alcoholism in my family. I was coming from violence in my family. I knew that wasn't going to work for me in the real world. So I also knew that I had to make some major changes. And how was I going to do that? Who was going to show me how? Back in my day, we didn't talk about these things so much. Now we have them, they're more out on the table, and it's more acceptable to be talking about our childhoods and what we were learning from our native tribe. Back then, we didn't talk about it much. So I'm a huge advocate of, putting on, your big girl britches, putting on your big boy pants and going for the gusto, um, by not wanting to hurt anyone's feelings, but wanting to be, again, a better person tomorrow than you are today.
Yes, this is inspiring for sure. Great job. I had a question while you were speaking about this whole section in the library about self help, right? So you said they were 40, 70, maybe.
Yeah,
Nowadays they are in the
yeah.
thousands, if I don't know how many,
Oh
right?
my god.
So in your
Today, it's a billion-dollar industry, personal development.
exactly,
Billion-dollar industry.
exactly.
And that's just in the United States. If I were to venture and guess, the industry in the world, we're probably close to 1 trillion. I mean, it can't not be. But, because there is so much available to us all today, but I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
No, no worries. No, keep going.
No, I mean, it's gotta be $1 trillion industry because not only do we have books, we have courses, we've got classes, we've got events, we've got retreats, we've got all kinds of things now that are, people in the personal development space that go before us. These are really huge shoulders that we can now stand on. Today, we know, Tony Robbins and the like, but before that, there was, Neville Goddard, and we had Louise Hayes, and just these are the kind of people that I have either followed or I've learned from or taken their courses or classes or have read their works.
Yeah, it's enormous for
Mm.
sure. But for me, this creates as well a paradox of choice because now you are kind of lost between these gurus and you don't know whom to follow and what to do exactly.
Yeah,
And sometimes you get even ambiguous advices.
yeah,
So the question that I wanted to ask you, you released your book not that long ago,
yes.
I think 2 years ago
No,
maybe.
exactly, yes.
Yes. So why did you think that the world needs one more self-help book? What you did you see missing before and you wanted to like
Well,
correct?
I think one of the things was there was a really crazy thing that people would think that because of my success that you had mentioned before, and the fact that I was working in an industry where you had to be a beautiful person physically, I was a model for many, many years, that I could have no issues. There could be no problems. Oh, you of all people? I've had people say, Clarissa, you're kidding me. You have or have had problems with self-esteem and issue. Self-esteem doesn't discriminate, Albert. It's like it's not one of those things. And self-esteem goes again, it goes really broad and very deep. So depending on what we're talking about, right? And who I'm talking to. You remember before the show I said, who's the audience? Because
Yeah.
I can come up with the same principles for a 13-year-old girl that I can for an 80-year-old man. Okay, a lot of people right now in their elderly years, there's a loneliness epidemic right now. People are dealing with,
Right.
they're dealing with all kinds of social issues. People as they're aging are looking at their mortality. There are lots of different. I could talk to a woman who right now might have breast cancer. What do you think about her self-esteem when she's just had a mastectomy and lost all her hair? She was perfectly fine a year ago. But what I said before, life will trigger you. And when life triggers, when there's the ebb and flow of what happens in life, what we want to make sure is that we have the tools in the shed at any given time so that we are able to deal with the aftermath when we are triggered. For example, I talk about being really standing strong in your stead, having really good roots in the ground. So when the hurricane is coming, here comes the tornado, here comes that really the tempest is coming through. If I am a tree, I am not going to be uprooted. I might lose a leaf or two, maybe even lose a branch, but I'm not going to be uprooted with a storm and transported away because I've got the tools in the shed that I need to weather the storm. This is why I say and why I'm continually inviting people to say, maybe you ask, why me? Why one more book? Because maybe my story is going to resonate with women. Maybe my story will resonate with with baby boomer women. Maybe my story doesn't resonate with you as much as a younger male. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you would prefer to hear these principles from someone that you might relate to with more ease. I like to think that my message is for everyone, but I do know that, baby boomer women, or, women from, let's say, 40 to 70 might listen to my story because of, who I am and my age, right? So it depends. I don't think that if there's a story in you and you feel that you can do some good in the world, that it needs to be written. And it has done. I mean, the just some of the stories that I've gotten back from people saying, "You've changed my life." And this is a book that will change your life one chapter at a time. You are not going to read about self-esteem, you are going to do self-esteem, because we have 12 chapters. We start with release, then we go to rebuild, then we go to responsibility, then we talk about reinvention, and it goes all the way down the line until the last chapter, which is reciprocal. A lot of times in self-esteem, Albert, we have a hard time accepting from others. We give, and we do, but we don't allow others to give to us. I had somebody say to me once, "Clarissa, it's so hard to do anything for you. It's so hard." And I was always kind of upset because I was always doing. And I'd be like, nobody ever does anything for me. And it's a selfish thought. And I agree that that's a selfish thought, but I'm human too. And so somebody put, "It's so hard to do anything for you." And that was a lesson for me. And it was a lesson that made me want to put it in the book. Sit back and relax sometimes and allow other people to love on you, to love you, to do for you, to want what you're doing for them is giving them now the joy of doing something for others, right?
Right, right. Yeah, this is very inspiring. And I think you make perfect sense about personal stories, because I am also doing this podcast based on personal stories, like from my life experiences and from my guests. So
Yeah.
I think it's definitely worth sharing. And from what I learned about your story, it's absolutely worth sharing as well.
Yeah.
So, going back to your book, you mentioned one tool is called mirror therapy, as I remember. Can you explain what do you mean by that and how to use it?
Sure.
Maybe it will come in handy for some people.
Yeah, so I learned about mirror therapy with Louise Hay's books, her works, and Louise Hayes was one of the original mentors, gurus, and she created a publishing house for people that were in the personal development industry. She's since gone, but she did leave quite a legacy, and she started talking about mirror therapy. Jack Canfield has it in his works. Jack Canfield is the other half of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series with Mark Victor Hansen.
Mhm.
So I read about it in his work as well. And if it was good enough for them, it was good enough for me. And the premise is becoming your own best rah-rah session, becoming your own best positive critic, and saying to your subconscious, there are two ways to approach a mirror. Albert, you can look at a mirror or you can look into a mirror. Two ways. When I'm looking at a mirror, I'm preening, I'm brushing my hair, I'm doing my makeup, I'm preening. So I'm looking at the mirror. When I look into the mirror, I'm screening. And I'm actually sitting and I'm looking and I'm taking a deep dive within my own eyes, into my own eyes, and I'm telling myself the things that I need to hear. So if it's, Clarissa, I really love you. And I just have to say, I'm really proud of you for the presentation that you gave in front of 100 people the other day, because I think you made a difference in their lives. And I forgive you for that time that you fill in the blank. And I want you to know how important you are to me. It sounds silly. It sounds ridiculous, and it's almost embarrassing to some people to get started with this. People are like, "I could never." Yeah, you can do it. You might not, want to do it when anybody else is home, but take it. People say, "Well, how long do I have to do it?" If you can start with it, start with a minute. If you want, I have 100 million affirmations in the book as well. Start with some of the affirmations if you're not sure where to start, but start with some good positive affirmations and say them to yourself into the mirror that arrives really into your soul. And when you do this for 21, I invite you to do it every day. But if you were to do it 21 days straight, every day, Start with 1 minute, go to 2 minutes, maybe to 3 minutes, sometimes 4 minutes. Some people need tissues because when you are saying to yourself, I really do like you, it's powerful. When I say to myself, I really love you, it's not narcissism. This is good, happy, healthy love. This is the kind of love that we need to be feeling for ourselves. Because narcissism is a lack of self-esteem, and that's a whole nother show, right? So the affirmations, I'll just go with the first ones that came up in the book. I honor myself. My life depends upon it. My life depends upon my honoring myself. My voice is all that matters. My life depends on it. I am my biggest fan. I deserve success. Negative voices of the past and present are like the wind that comes and goes and never return. Look, it may sound silly in the beginning, but I'm telling you, this is probably the most impactful exercise in the book. It's that powerful.
That sounds powerful. I must give it a try,
Yeah.
to be honest. That, yeah, it's very
Just
interesting.
sit there with yourself. Maybe close the bathroom door, whatever you need to do to
Yeah.
make sure that you have that time to yourself, and do it every day. And get in there and say, "I'm so proud of you. Gosh, you look good today. All right, let's go. Whose life can we change today? How can we serve someone?" And sometimes, Albert, it's as simple as complimenting someone at the grocery store. I do this frequently. Somebody I've never seen before, and I'll just, gosh, that's a pretty top. That really looks good on you. Well, thank you. I've made somebody feel good. That makes me feel good. They feel good. I feel good. Win-win. Off I go. Sometimes it's just if we could get back to kindness, doing a holding the door open, hold the elevator door for somebody, help the woman down the stairs with a baby carriage, all the things, stand up on public transportation for someone that is older than you or for a woman that is pregnant. A lot of that has gone by the wayside. And if we do those things, which by the way, it's the right thing to do, we really are honoring ourselves. We are honoring the good within ourselves and honoring the person that we are. It's an energetic exchange, right? And so I'm very passionate about that. Very passionate about doing the right thing and living with honor. I have, people say, well, how can I get started with better self-esteem? I think one of the most important things that we could bring to the table is a value system, Albert. And if I say to you, give me 4 or 5, the things that are most important to you right now in your value system. A lot of people don't even know what I'm talking about. They go, I get deer in the headlights. I'm going to give you my value system, Albert, and see if it works for everyone that's listening. Please take it and use it. I take the high road. It has nothing to do with drugs. I know you're in Amsterdam. It has nothing. Here's
Yeah, a very important disclaimer.
I take the high road: honesty, integrity, gratitude, and honor. And if you can you imagine, Albert, and I know I sound ridiculous when I say it, can you imagine if you woke up tomorrow morning and the entire world, everybody was honest? What kind of world?
The word would be a different place.
If you woke up tomorrow and everyone lived in integrity, or everyone was grateful for what they had. Now, I understand that may sound like a crazy thought because you say, wait a minute, somebody on Park Avenue, New York City, and someone in Africa, that doesn't sound correct. That's a whole different concept, and we could be another show on that too. But if people were to be more grateful for what they do have and stop bitching about what they don't have, and if you lived with honoring yourself and honoring others, could you imagine? That's my blueprint. That's what I come to the table with. I am a human being, and God knows I'm imperfect, but I do want to be a better person tomorrow than I am today. And I make sure that I do something every day that gets me a little bit closer to my goal. So an honor system is something that I highly suggest that everybody gets into their, not only into the lexicon, but into the mindset of, hey, what's your honor system? Like, what are what's really important for you? And that is for me taking the high road.
Yeah, that's absolutely meaningful, and I think everybody should reflect on it. And about the thing that you mentioned about kindness, you are just rephrasing one thing we mentioned before on our show as well about compassion. I think it originates from compassion, and compassion itself and practicing it could also have, like we proved it by neuroscience, how it improves the pro-social neurocircuits in our brains. So it's very effective. And also about the gratitude. So with this mirror therapy, it reminds me about practicing gratitude, but reflecting the gratitude on your, like, does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, we do want to get rid of those daily demons. We want them never coming back. We do want to wake up every day and say, okay, I know I'm a human and I know I'm imperfect, but I'm trying the best I know how. What can I do today to be closer to that goal for tomorrow, right? And so, the idea of it is all to be mindful, like, be really mindful about this. Keeping it. People say, "Oh, I don't have the time to read the book." Well, look, it's in 12 bite-sized chapters. You're not going to read about self-esteem. You're going to do the self-esteem. And if you can get into your calendar the vet for your dog, the haircut, going to get your nails done, the vacation, Christmas shopping, to PTA for the kids, you can get into your calendar, 10 to 15 minutes a day to read a chapter and implement it. Okay. You might read a chapter a week and, work on the work that I give you. Because like I said, this is a manual. It's not quite a workbook, but kind of. And, continually doing the work will make things, will keep things forefront for you. And remembering that you are the one that wants to stop the toxic is such a driver. It is such a motivator. You're like, if I think about raising my voice, which by the way used to be the way I lived. It was what I knew. Everything was yelling when I was a kid. I knew that when I got into the world and I started yelling and people looked at me like I had three heads, I would go, "Oh, that doesn't seem to work out here in the real world." So again, being mindful about what it is you need to change and then do everything you can, everything that is possible to change it. Here's something. Let me leave you with this as well, because I know we're getting close to the end. We often talk about with self-esteem never comparing, right? It's like self-esteem 101, never compare yourself to anyone else. That's really hard to do, especially on social media now, because there's so much more to compare to. We see everyone having great success and the big mansion and the two Lamborghinis parked out front and all of that. And sometimes I question if that's real or if it was just rented for the day. So, and if it's real, I'm happy for everyone's success. But here's what I do want to say is that we hear the expression very frequently. We hear the grass is always greener on the other side. Okay. Is the grass greener on the other side, or is the grass always greener where you water it?
Yes. Where you water it.
Where you water it. Number two, is the grass really greener on the other side, or is that astroturf? Like, is it plastic grass? Is it plastic and is it fake? In other words, what is your perception of what you think you see, and what is their perception of what they want you to see, right? So be really, really, and by the way, who cares? Because what anyone else thinks about me is none of my business, and I am here to be the best person I can be. That's what we need to be focusing on. Forget about Tom, Dick, and Harry. Forget about the Joneses. Great, be happy for them, but get back to your sandbox and be the best person that you can be.
Thoughts, Clarissa? I think this is food for thought for everyone for being the best version of themselves. This is very helpful, and thank you so much for the interesting conversation. Looking forward to have you in the future as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.